Good evening to the listening public, the people here on the island of Nevis, those in St. Kitts, those who listen throughout the Caribbean Sea. Good evening to you in North America, those in the United States, those in Canada. Good evening to those of you in the United Kingdom. Wherever you are this evening, good evening to you. I pray and hope that you're in good health, and thank you for joining another edition of On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and I will be here with you, God willing, from now until 10 o'clock. Each week on a Wednesday, you tune in here because we have what we feel is substantive discussion that goes for 2 hours from 8 until 10. And this show, On the Mark, remains the only show of its kind, 2 hours of commercial-free talk radio. And so we're very grateful that you have joined us. We are thankful for you all around the world who every Wednesday for the last 20 years have been with us, and we are truly grateful for that. This, of course, is the Eastern Caribbean's only powerhouse, VON Radio, the voice of Nevis, and it's 860 on your AM dial. You also, of course, are listening, viewing, no doubt, on YouTube or on Facebook, because we are streaming live and using all the modern technology that's available to us to ensure that we can come to you in a way that is easy and understandable. So welcome to another edition. It is a beautiful night here on the island of Nevis. It is warm, but really a great night, and we are grateful to God that thus far, as I speak to you on the 23rd day of October in the year of our Lord 2024, we have had no hurricanes, no storms, and no major threats to our island at this point. Even the tropical storm that did threaten at some point really did not do any damage, and so we're truly grateful to that. And of course, we had the early storm Beryl that devastated some of our Caribbean neighbors, but since that it has been fairly quiet, and we're praying and hoping that we can get to the end of the hurricane season, which is the end of November, without there being any further mishap or further difficulty. And so we continue to ask for your prayers. We continue to ask all of us to bend our knees and ask God for mercy, that we will be spared, not just here in Nevis and St. Kitts, but also across the Caribbean region from any further damage. We'll be talking about a few things this evening, but at the outset, let me just express warm congratulations to all who are celebrating, whether it's an anniversary or birthday today. Let me also express condolences to all who might be mourning the loss of a loved one. And let me wish all of those who might be sick and hospitalized a speedy recovery. We need you. We need all of you. And so we look forward very much to all who are sick, all who might be hospitalized, being touched and being able to have their health restored and to come back to us in full mettle, fine fettle, and be able to work, contribute, and do all that they do for their families and for our beautiful island and our country. So we say thank you. Confess I'm not 100%, but I am here this evening because I see this as a very sacred duty, that here on a Wednesday we try to engage with the public. As the Premier of the island of Nevis, now into my second term as Premier, I believe that it is an awesome responsibility to be the servant leader of our people. And it is a responsibility that requires that I make myself available to engage with our people. And what better way than an open forum such as this, and a forum where when we open the phones, every man, woman and child is able to pick up the phone and to call. And I want you to reflect on that, because even in the great democracies of the world, we look to the United States, we look to Canada, we look elsewhere, I don't know of any leader anywhere who makes himself available every single week that he's able in order to be on radio and to have a dialogue and discussion with the public. That to me is important. And so I am hopeful that when the history books are written, it will say that here on the island of Nevis we had this show, and on this show we had the Premier, the leader of the island, who continued to make himself available for discussions and for conversations. Many, when I became Premier, suggested that I ought to abandon this show, but I decided that it was important for me to continue to have this platform as a mechanism to engage with our people, to have conversations, to have the type of dialogue which I think makes us all better. And so on this show, On the Mark, we say, because we mean it, that we accept all shades of public opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I understand that in this island and in this country we have different political parties. We have different beliefs. We have our own ideas about matters. The only thing that I ask is that if you choose to exercise that privilege to call and have your voice heard on this platform, which is being listened to by thousands across the world, that you do so respectfully, and that we can engage with each other with a level of respect and maturity that really speaks to who we are as a people. And so I invite your calls when the lines are open, and I invite you to be a part of the show this evening. Someone commented to me that we didn't have many calls in last week's show, and so I hope that this week more people will exercise that privilege to call, share their views and opinions, so that we can engage in as robust a dialogue as we can. I believe it helps the island, it helps the country, and that freedom of speech, which is a cornerstone of our democracy, that we're able to engage one with each other. And so, ladies and gentlemen, a few topics, some that are local, some that are regional, some that are international. And so I engage first on the local scene. Some weeks ago I had a show here and I spoke about the situation in Gaza. I spoke about the escalation of tensions, war in the Middle East. I spoke about the difficulties that could pose, and that Israel, which was now and is now one of the main protagonists there, the difficulties that would entail. I spoke about the Russian and Ukraine situation that continues even now to involve other nations, as we now hear that North Korea has sent troops into Russia, and the expectation, or perhaps the fear, is that North Korean troops will be fighting alongside Russia in the Ukrainian war. Even as we speak, the so-called BRICS nations are gathered and engage with Russia, in Russia I gather, and they are seeking to align themselves in a way that provides, if you will, a bulwark against a different approach to economies and how economies are structured, to that has traditionally been the role of the West to determine. And so there's a lot that's happening globally. I listen to the news, I watch the news like all of you, I read the news wherever I can, and it is clear that this is a world that is in tremendous turmoil at this point in time. I was surprised, therefore, to learn that my last show, when I focused on some of these world events, I was castigated in some quarters, saying, why am I focusing on Middle East confusion and war here and war there, and not focusing instead on Nevis and what is happening in the Federation? And I smiled. I smiled because sometimes I feel, despite our very high standards of education, despite the expectation that because of our high standards of education, our people will be able to reason at a particular level, that some of us, indeed too many of us, still revel in misinformation and confusion. Too many of us continue to use social media and our various platforms to spew nonsense. And I say that because, on a cursory glance, war and instability in the Middle East, war in Ukraine involving Russia, you know what that translates into? It translates immediately into potential difficulties in relation to oil, in relation to the price of oil. We are hearing now that Iran may well be drawn in. Already Iran is involved, they say, in the Middle East conflict in terms of its proxies, Hezbollah, and of course those Hamas in Gaza. Russia is a significant oil producer. If Russian oil and Iranian oil are impacted by this, then what do we think is going to happen? Right here in Little Nevis and St. Kitts, where people say we as leaders ought to ignore what is happening around the world. What is likely to happen is that the price of oil goes up. Now, if the price of oil were to go up internationally, brothers and sisters, what that means is that your Nevlek and Skellig bill will go up. It means that the cost of living will go up. The bus men and women will soon start to say, They need a top up because gasoline is diesel are more expensive. I want our people to understand that there is a level of interconnectivity in the world. It is not a world anymore which exists in silos. We are all now connected. It is truly a global village. I know that term is used sometimes, and some may say even abused sometimes. But we are a global village. And I encourage our people to expand our horizons, expand our outlook, expand our gaze, expand our analyses beyond the local, and to understand, or at least try to understand, how the world works. Because the outer world and what is happening in the outer world impacts us. Do you know, for example, that whilst we've heard a lot of concern being expressed, and justly so, about the rising cost of living around the world, that the war in Ukraine and the fact that Ukraine is one of the world's largest grain producers, grain that is used for a variety of products, that is credited for having an impact on the rising cost of food and basic necessities. And so if you're paying more for cereal, you're paying more for goods in the supermarket, I want you to understand that that is not impacted by us, because as we know, most of our food continues to be imported. And so what happens in the outer world impacts us. It impacts us directly, it impacts us indirectly. And whilst we may not be ourselves at war, it behooves us to interest ourselves to find out what is going on, because if we understand the dynamics there, it may help us to better understand the dynamics here. And so I rebuke any suggestion that on a talk show like this, which seeks to have an elevated platform for discussion, for reasoned debate and mature exchanges, that somehow some topics are off limits. I appreciate certainly my role as the Premier of Nevis. I appreciate that I have no role outside St. Kitts and Nevis. I, for example, have no role in Antigua or in Barbados or in the United States of America or in Russia or Ukraine. But I want our people to appreciate that having conversations about world affairs doesn't diminish us. It helps to educate all of us in terms of our interconnectivity, in terms of how situations in one part of the world can and oftentimes impact the rest of the world. Rising cost of living, potential rising cost of fuel, which in turn will lead to a further rise in the cost of living. All of these are pertinent issues for every person on the planet, and certainly for every person here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I am optimistic that our people will rise to the occasion, and that those few, sometimes a bit more than a few, who continue to denigrate and continue to attack everything, that they will understand that there is a need for us to understand what is happening in the world, and so better position ourselves, sometimes better prepare ourselves for the impact that's coming. I continue to pray for peace in the Middle East. I continue to pray and hope that the war in Ukraine can come to an end. But that we know is not in our hands. There are far bigger players involved. But I am hopeful that a continued exhibition of man's inhumanity to man, that will come to an end. It is perhaps one of the great tragedies of our time, that with all of our advances in technology, with all of the things that we can now achieve, that man's inhumanity to man continues unabated. That our ability to have empathy, love for each other, that continues to elude us. And so for us here, even in Little St. Kitts and Nevis, it behooves us to understand and to lend our voices where possible to a peaceful world. Now, having commented on that and the irony of being criticized for discussing what's happening around the world, let me come a bit closer home. It is a topic that I addressed in a press conference that I held most recently, and I will address it again this evening, because I was sent a clip by two operatives of the Nevis Reformation Party, the opposition party here on the island of Nevis. And that clip, I was roundly attacked. And what was I attacked for? These two commentators said that Prime Minister Drew had made a speech and that I, as leader of the opposition, had not responded. And I sat back and I said, well, that's an interesting line of attack. Is it that every speech that the Prime Minister makes, I'm expected to make a speech in response? Is it that every thing that he puts out, every comment that he makes, every trip that he takes, every policy prescription that he prescribes, that I am required to make a response? What really is the role of opposition and the leader of the opposition? We have seen, especially on the island of Nevis, that the presumed role of the opposition is to cuss. That's what they do all day, every day. They wake up in the morning, they cuss. They have lunch at noon, they cuss. They have tea in the afternoon, they cuss. They have dinner at night, they cuss. When most of us are saying our prayers, thanking God for seeing us through the day, begging God to wake us up the next morning, the NRP is cussing. That's what they do. Do they offer even once a solution? And I challenge you, when we open the lines, anybody out there, to tell me what solution has the NRP offered the people of Nevis in relation to any matter that confronts us. They cuss. That's what they do best. But all of us know how to cuss. I was born in Hanley's Road. I grew up in Brownhill. You can't come from Henley Park and Brownhill and don't know how to cuss. But of what value is it? When you're talking about serious issues, and I always say that we live in serious times, and serious times demand serious attention from serious people. What is there in cussing that advances your interest? How does cussing each other help the single mother in Jessops? Help the struggling father up in Rollins? How does it help that child who needs the necessities to go to school, or that family that needs better health care? The truth is, it helps no one. And I understand politics, and I understand our culture, and I can cuss with the best of them. But there's a time and place for everything. There's a time for us to engage in the picong and the back and forth, and then there's a time to settle down and to govern and run the country. And when I say to govern, governance is not only up to the Prime Minister or the Premier or those who are in government. Those in opposition also have something to offer in terms of governance. And that something is not just to cuss, is not just to criticize. Sometimes it is laughable. I only have to get up in the morning, go out on my porch and said, let me post a photo of my sock that I'm wearing today. That's enough to occupy the NRP for the rest of the day, I can assure you. Screenshot, talked about, socks, pretty socks, red socks, black socks, yellow socks, that is enough. It in a way shows the level, rather low level, if I can say it, of the political discourse in the country. So I see these two individuals. I don't even know what their names are, because I don't associate myself with people who have accomplished nothing in life. And those two added together still get naught. But I saw the two of them, And they are attacking me because they say Prime Minister Drew made an address and I did not respond. But what was I to respond to? Prime Minister Drew was speaking about the Citizenship by Investment program. Has the country not been listening? For the years that I've been speaking about the Citizenship by Investment program, what I think we need to do to enhance it, what I believe must happen if we are to restore it to its glory days, how it ought to function. I have argued and advocated. If you look at my last two budget addresses, I spoke for hours on end about how we can do better insofar as our CBI program is concerned and how we can reposition St. Kitts and Nevis in what is now a multi-billion-dollar industry. So if I've said all that, and I've been consistent in offering solutions, in offering ideas, what am I to respond to? You see, what I regret is that, notwithstanding our stellar academic and other achievements, notwithstanding that in every facet of human endeavor, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis have moved forward, that there's still some who see politics as blood sport, who feel that the only purpose of politics is to cuss each other, hoping that by so doing you convince enough people to allow you into office where you can, for the next 5 years, rape and pillage, and you and your friends, qualified or unqualified, can benefit. That, it appears, is the whole purpose of our politics. The politics of ideas, the cut and thrust of debate, the ability to say, I don't agree with you here, but perhaps I agree with you there. Nobody has all bad ideas and nobody has all good ideas. But together, we can take an idea, refine it, and get the best possible use out of that idea for the advancement of our people. Now, I confess that I was not always of this mind, but I have said that with maturity and being in politics now for some time, I feel that there is more that we can accomplish trying our best to work together. We will not always agree, but we can try where we have areas of agreement to work across the aisle, remembering that all of us are, or all of us ought to be, interested in politics not for ourselves but to help those whom we serve. And so I go back to this notion because it comes from a fundamental misapprehension of what the opposition ought to be doing. Because I don't get up at mornings and cuss, I don't have lunch and cuss, I don't have my tea in the afternoons and cuss, and I certainly do not go to bed at nights cussing. There is a view, therefore, that I have abdicated my role as leader of the opposition. I have said that I am elected by the proud people of Nevis 9. My party, the CCM, won all the seats, 100% of the seats on the island of Nevis in 2020 and again in 2022 at the federal level. We are the second largest block of seats in the National Assembly. And on that basis, my colleagues thought it fit to have me serve in the position of leader of the opposition. I have used that bully pulpit, that platform, to advocate and to indicate where possible that ideas that may emanate from the government, or indeed our own ideas that come from the opposition, how those ideas can be improved, made better, put to work for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, including the people of Number 9 who sent me to Bastia to represent them. Now, I could go down to Bastia and cuss. I can cuss PM Drew cuss his deputy Jeffrey, cuss everybody on the other side. Offer no ideas, offer no solutions, offer no prescription. Offer nothing from my own intellectual reservoir. Say to my colleagues, offer nothing, just cuss. Get up and ray and rah. At the end of the day, I ask this question rhetorically. Who does it benefit? What does it contribute to our national dialogue? And how does it help? Are the people of St. John's and St. Paul's any better off if I cuss? Are the good people of St. James and St. Thomas's any better off if Alexis Jeffers cusses? Are the good people of Gingerland any better off if Eric Evelyn goes in the parliament to cuss? But it seems that there's a perspective that if you're not cussing, you're not opposing, you're not doing your job. And I am saying that we need to move beyond that. NRP is NRP, CCM is CCM. PAM is PAM and Labour is Labour. But at the end of the day, we are all Kittitians and Nevisians. And I would expect that your love of country, which we all claim, that's why we're in politics, that your love of country will motivate you. That if you see something is going wrong and you have a solution to offer, that you'll offer that solution whether you're in government or in opposition. You see, crime is happening in the country which threatens to derail all the gains that we would have made. That you have ideas on how we can deal with that problem, that you ought not to sit on your hands and wait and say let the country mash up. And when I get in, I will fix it, because you know what? By then it might be too late. I have said it in public before. And as a young politician, I was in opposition. And I like to think that I provided a robust opposition. And yes, I did my share of cussing back then too. So that's how you know I'm capable. But part of my opposition, even as a young politician, was to suggest solutions. And when something good was done, to offer commendations. I can well recall a show, I believe right here, when then Premier Joseph Parry negotiated with Winair to keep Winair flying into the Van Samuel International Airport. And I publicly applauded him on being able to do that. It did not take anything from me. And it did not mean that I was not opposing Joseph Parry and his NRP. But to my mind, it was the mature thing to do. Have you ever heard this new NRP say that anything at all in Nevis is going well? You hear them every day. Everybody in Nevis are dead hungry. Crime killing us. No water, no electricity, no rain. Sun too hot. All of it is government fault. Have you ever heard them say even one thing? Right now, Four Seasons down there full, sold out. You ever hear anybody in NRP say well done? That we are happy for the hundreds of workers who we are hopeful will be taken home a fatter than usual paycheck? I am saying that the country is not perfect. It is not all good, but equally it is not all bad. And sometimes, if we're able to point out what the issues are, suggest what solutions could be offered, but at the same time acknowledge that our country, and let me emphasize, our country is moving forward and needs all of us, not some, but all of us, to make it progress. I had the uncomfortable situation recently of having a significant investor with whom we have initiated a conversation tell me that he is coming to the country to look around. And I felt compelled to engage and to share with this investor what the political climate in Nevis now is. And to say to that investor that I want you to keep this at the back of your mind as you engage. Because in Nevis of today, if you engage with one person, he tells you it is night, and you engage with another person, he tells you it is day. Do you know when Joseph Parry was Premier of Nevis, and I was a vocal critic of the NRP, that I chartered, working as an attorney at the time, chartered a plane and brought a group of investors here to do a hotel project. These were the same investors who did the Viceroy Hotel project in Anguilla, which is now rebranded as the Four Seasons. I brought them here. They were keenly interested. I, with the resources of my law firm, flew them in, rented a room at the Four Seasons, invited the Honorable Premier and his team to meet with them, to engage with them, and to discuss how they could do a project on Nevis. I was in opposition. But if a top-notch hotel project were to come to Nevis, you realize opposition and government benefit? They all benefit, and all of our people benefit. Somebody said to me when MSR Media was here, my government was paying out somewhere, I believe, close to $30,000 or $40,000 a month. It may be a bit more. I don't remember the precise figure, but tens of thousands of dollars a month to Hamilton Beach Resort and Spa. That's where the people stayed. When the people came and said that that's where they were going to stay, does the government have any issues because the government will be paying the bill? That was the deal we had with the people when they came to make movies here. And I said absolutely not. Hamilton Resort and Spa is, as far as I know, a fine hotel property. Why would I have a problem if you're staying there? So, well, I just want to be sure. And the government paid dutifully every month the accommodation cost there for the crew and those who were there. And then one day somebody said to me, but the owners and proprietors of that place are violently opposed to you. They want to get you out of office and still you're spending government money with them. I said, that's all right. Because the only people who can take me out of office are the voters. I don't care who owns what. I don't care who feels how. Each man has one vote. Each woman has one vote. And they're the only people that can remove me from office. They say those who are put there by God. God lifts up and God takes down. And the voice of the people in an election is the voice of God. And that is and was my response. But the point that I'm trying to make, brothers and sisters, is this. Regardless of who owned that particular property or who control it, because I don't know who own it, you know who got the benefit of the government's expenditure during COVID? the workers, the employees at that place were who benefited. And whenever I drove and I saw the workers going to work there, knowing that around the world and around the region, tourism had come to a standstill, and we as your government had negotiated with this company to come here and make some movies and to house scores of individuals at Hamilton, for which the government was paying, I said to myself, that money is now going to circulate in the Nevis economy. Help to pay those housekeepers, laundry people, servers, managers, accountants who are Nevisian, and many of whom I am sure are supporters of the Concerned Citizens Movement. So what am I supposed to do? Spite them because I'm trying to spite somebody? No. And that is the maturity that I'm talking about. There are some now who have this mantra that nothing is happening in Nevis. There's no investment. My investment is there for all to see. There's no investment in Nevis. Nevis is dead. They say investors aren't coming ashore. But the reality of the situation is vastly different. But here's the concern, that they're so wrapped up in the negativity, wrapped up in trying to convince people that the sun is shining when it is out there dark at night, or that it is pitch black when in fact the sun is shining, that they are prepared to block, to delay, to ostracize, to castigate, and to attack. MSR Media came here. I brought them here to make movies. Whatever else they got involved in when they were wooed away to St. Kitts, that had nothing to do with me. But they came here, we had a deal for them to make movies, and that they did on the island of Nevis. They held up their end of the bargain and we held up ours. What did NRP do? They attacked MSR. Notwithstanding that a substantial number of people working with MSR and making a dollar during COVID were strong NRP supporters. They heard about the airport. Mark you, they have been arguing for years that the airport is dead. We all understand that the Van Samer International Airport badly needs to be upgraded. And so we came up with a project and we engaged with a local investor, one of those who somehow, despite none coming ashore, found himself ashore and has already invested tens of millions of dollars in Nevis. And I'm talking US dollars here. Said that he was interested in partnering with us to develop the airport. NRP's response, they went to march. 6 of them over at the airport with some placards. That's what they went to do. Castigated the man. This, that, and the other. Every time there is somebody who comes to this island and says they have come to invest or to seek out opportunities for investment, once the opposition in Nevis gets wind of it, I can assure you they will attack the individuals. Unless, of course, when the individuals come, they hire the leader of NRP and 1 or 2 NRP people, then they seem very quiet. The only time they're quiet. But I'm saying that imagine as a Premier of Nevis, I have to say to investors, just be mindful that that is the nature of our politics here. I remind you what I just said. When I was in opposition, I brought in investors at my expense to meet with the NRP leader and Premier of Nevis, because you know what? Notwithstanding he was NRP leader, he was my Premier too. I'm Vision. I live here. And he is the man that God put there. Put up by God. And when God was ready, God take him down. Through the power of the people in a free and fair election. But now when people come, you have to tell them to be careful of the environment, because we understand that if they speak to these operatives, the response that they will get is, everything here is terrible, don't come here, don't come here, don't invest here. Because you see, they want to continue to perpetuate the notion that Nevis is stagnant and that nothing is happening. And that, I think, is unfortunate. And so let me make it pellucid again, since it appears that there are some out there who are hard of hearing. I know the two who are criticizing me. As I said, you combine them, you still can't get naught. I had said naught earlier, but something less than naught if you combine the two of them. They are what we call failures at everything that they have attempted. They may succeed later in life, but we have not yet seen any signs of that. And so they attack, say that PM Drew made comments and that I was derelict in my duty in not making a speech in response. And so let me make it clear, pellucid, as I would like to say, that my role, first and foremost, is a representative of the people of Nevis 9 who elected me and sent me to Parliament. My role, beyond that, is to represent the people of my island of Nevis, who have decided to give my party that I'm privileged to lead 100% of the seats available in the federal parliament on the island of Nevis. My role is to go into the federal parliament as a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis and a man elected to that august body to represent all of our people and to advocate for our people, to offer my ideas and the ideas of my colleagues to see how we can make St. Kitts and Nevis a better place. If, in fulfilling that role, there's a need to be confrontational, there's a need to deal in a direct way with the government on issues, then so be it. But if, in fulfillment of that role, there's also an opportunity for collaboration, for the exchange of ideas, and to make ideas that are emanating from the government, or indeed ideas emanating from the opposition, or indeed ideas emanating from the general public better, so that our lives could be better, then I shall fulfill that role. So I want people to be clear that nobody have to light no candle to look for me. And everybody should know that I stand in my own two shoes, my own boots. They used to call me the sheriff. I am still the sheriff. A little older, a little wiser, but I stand on my own two boots. Nobody gonna fool me, and nobody's gonna make me do what I do not think is the right thing to do. For you out there who are arguing about leader of opposition and who should be leader of opposition and how leader of opposition should act and should look, I say to you very simply, the law prescribes a way that you can become leader of the opposition, and therefore do it yourself. For the talking heads, get yourself nominated and run. You have to put up a deposit of 150 EC dollars. If you don't have it, I will assist you with it. You get it back if you can get a certain minimum percentage of the vote. Since you have so much chat, I don't think you should lose your deposit. But we don't know. Because talk in the pavilion and play on the field is two different things. For those who are in politics, as is active politicians, but have much to say about me and my role as leader of the opposition, let me tell you, the same law prescribes how you become leader of the opposition. And it starts by being able to win seats. If you can't win a seat, you can't be leader of the opposition. So, there are some very easy ways, I think, that you can address the problem. You don't need to cuss me. All you need to do is to put on your boots and enter the race. And if you can't do that, then those who are already in the politics, tell them to win some seats. Because that is the way. And so I just wanted to address that tonight, because I feel that much time is wasted on this apparent need for us to cuss each other. And we lose the opportunity to actually engage in a mature discussion that can actually help people. We say we're here to help people, you know. And that's what we need to do. Now the NRP is all up in arms because some Kunomono convinced them that I am intending to call a snap election. So they hype. And I'm just here to say, elections will come when they will come. There was a time, I believe it was Dr. Douglas, who at the height of his power, he said, wait on the skipper. And he was talking to me, you know. Tell me, wait on the skipper. Well, guess what? I am now the skipper. That's how things are, you know. That's how things are sometimes. So, when he was saying it, he was telling me, boy, go sit down and wait. So now I am saying, let the process. People elect us for 5 years. We have gone a year and 10 months. What election people talking about? The country needs to settle down. We need to settle down. We need to get the work done. We have important things to do. And I am sending out the invitation to the NRP, to the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, formerly of the NRP. And I'm saying, listen, there are avenues and opportunities for you to actually contribute to the development of Nevis. The constant cussing doesn't help you. It doesn't help the island. It certainly can't help the constituents that you say you serve. And obviously the fact that you can't win an election tells you it doesn't help your party either. Because election after election after election, the result has been the same. NRP go sit down. And still, they won't change course. So I just want to take a moment to address that. I have no doubt that I'll have to come back to it, but I'll come back to it as many times as necessary. That those out there who are offering the critiques and the criticisms, the constant natural neighbors of extreme negativity, that you have to understand that when you're dealing with me, I am focused. I didn't get to where I am by kicking at every barking dog, especially dog with no teeth. I have to remain focused on what it is we're trying to achieve for this island of Nevis. And I want to make that clear. I said that I will discuss a number of different issues. Let me move now to the US election. Because in the great United States of America, we have an election that is fast approaching. In fact, it is now mere weeks away. We have on the one hand former President Donald Trump, and we have on the other hand current Vice President Kamala Harris, partly of Caribbean descent, because I'm advised that her father is Jamaican, a woman of color, and a woman who is offering herself to make history as the first female and the first black female President of the United States of America. Forgive me. Now, the election, I believe, is going to be historic, and I have not said much about it because, in my own humble way, I have seen that the United States and its politics is a creature of a different color. I remember when President Barack Obama, when he became president, history was made. First black person in the White House. The ironies are there for those who can see them. But as the first black family went into the White House in America, and Obama was re-elected for a second term, I asked some questions, and perhaps sometimes my questions are not popular questions. But I asked a question, for example, did the situation for African Americans in the United States improve? Were there fewer African American males being incarcerated in what is referred to as the industrial jail complex? Jail in America is an industry. Did President Obama change the situation in relation to our brothers and sisters in Cuba, who have suffered under this unjust embargo since the 1960s, relic of the Cold War? So whilst no doubt history was made, and no doubt President Obama did some great things, Affordable Care Act being one of them in the United States, there were issues that I hold near and dear, like Cuba, our Caribbean brothers and sisters there, and how they've suffered under this embargo. Where Obama left it until his second term, late in his second term, to try to ameliorate some of the difficulties with Cuba. And of course, as soon as Trump took office, that was all reversed, leaving our Cuban brothers and sisters no better off. So I say these things to say, not to criticize Obama, but to say that there are times when, whatever our expectations might be, the system that is the American system of politics to a great extent dictates what happens in terms of major policy. And that was the situation, I believe, under Obama. So the question now that we have to contend with is whether or not Trump or Harris in the White House, in America, will be able, as president, to effect the fundamental changes that we would like to see. The position on Israel, Gaza, and the Middle East. The position on Ukraine, on China, North Korea. Difficulties with Venezuela. The issues with migrant people. The issues with guns and firearms flooding the Caribbean from the United States. How are we to deal with those things? But I have the privilege, perhaps, of not being on the field of play in the United States. I can't vote there. And so it will be for the U.S. citizens, the American people, to determine who will be the next president of their country. And as I like to say, the voice of the people is the voice of God. It is the case here in Nevis and St. Kitts. It is the case in the great United States of America. And so my admonition to all who might be listening to the show is that if you have the right to vote, go out and exercise that right. Vote your conscience. Vote for who you determine will do the best for you and your children and for the country. That is what I encourage you to do. And so it will be left, no doubt, and in the next few weeks we will hear what the people of the United States of America have decided. So I leave that and leave the good people there to make up their mind and come to their determination. I move quickly to Bermuda, which I touched upon last week, just to remind the good people of Bermuda that I hopefully will be there on Friday and hope to engage with the people there in a town hall setting on Friday. Let me just again get the address, forgive me, that I will be engaging with them, and that engagement with the good people of Bermuda will be this coming Friday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Christ Anglican Church Hall, Middle Road, Devonshire, DV8, Bermuda. And we're inviting all persons of St. Kitts and Nevis and friends of St. Kitts and Nevis. We will serve light refreshments. We are having a 3-hour discussion there and hope to see you. Somehow it appears since last week, once I get halfway in the show, I start to cough. That therefore may be a good point to have a break, and hopefully people will call. It is just about 9 o'clock. Let me open the lines. 869-469-1616 and 1700. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello, good evening.
Hey Matt, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, 5 minutes later, I just wake up.
You just wake up?
Yeah, but me not catch all but I know it's like chemical, you know, so.
Uh-huh.
So, you know this, right? You know this?
Hello?
You know who this is?
Yes, I know. What's happening?
Right. What's that? You know this is no. But, all the best. I'm going to see you tomorrow, right?
Alright.
Yeah.
Take care, brother.
Yeah.
Alright, good. We're sticking with the phones and taking your calls. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
The sheriff, good night.
How are you,
I don't see Rodney been walking you, and I know when you catch like a fast. I look like a feeling boots with you. Isaiah 12 verse 4 and 5. And in that day shall he say, praise the Lord, call upon his name, declare his doing among the people, make mention that the name is exalted. Sing unto the Lord, for he has done excellent things. This is known in all the earth. Have a good evening. Take care of yourself. You have a call from the AC. Turn it down. Good night.
All right. Thank you very much for that, and I certainly appreciate it. Maybe I have a call from talking too much. So the lines are open, and we're inviting your calls. 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call. We have maybe another 58 minutes to go, and we're taking your calls on those numbers. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot that's happening, and a lot out there in the world that we are engaged with. We just heard news as we look around the region that the Premier of the British Virgin Islands has today fired his Deputy Premier, Mrs. Lorna Smith, I think her name is, and we are yet to understand what the reasons for that might be. The Premier has indicated that he doesn't think that Lorna Smith would have stayed the course. Lorna Smith, of course, would have come from a different political party and joined the Premier's party, Premier Wheatley, to form a government, and was given the position of Deputy Premier. What's interesting is that there's a chap called Fraser, I think, who has now been sworn in as Deputy Premier, and he too has come across from one of the other parties. So the politics in the BVI seems quite intriguing at this point. A game of chess is unfolding, I know we have listeners in the BVI, so if any of them can call in and give us a perspective from the shop floor, we would certainly appreciate that, to learn and to understand a bit better what is happening there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot is happening on the island of Nevis. We continue to make good progress. I did indicate that the Four Seasons Resort is full at this point in time. Praise be to God. It means that our workers are out there and they're making $1. It means our taxi drivers and our restaurants are making $1. In fact, just last night I was out at a particular restaurant and I was quite pleased at the crowd that was there. And so I am delighted to hear that and to understand that, and to really look at the economic activity that we're seeing on the island. In fact, I engaged, I believe it was last night, with my family at home, and I said to them, let us try to list out the restaurants in Nevis. And I posted to social media what these restaurants were, and I believe I got to about 70 or thereabouts. And then I said there were clearly some that I may have forgotten, so I invited other people to send and to comment about other restaurants. And I am pretty sure that Nevis has well over 100 various establishments for food, covering multiple types of cuisines and multiple budgets. Some that are high-end, some that are medium, some that are just ordinary mom and pop local spots. And it made my heart glad, because again it underscores the lie that some are telling, that nothing is happening on the island. A number of those restaurants have opened, for example, in the last few years. A number of them are offering things that we never saw before. You take, for example, Nevis Peak Brewery, which is offering beer, locally produced beer, being sold on tap. And in fact, I had a brief word with them recently, and they're indicating that they are thinking now of having their beer into the main hotels in St. Kitts and in Nevis. And I thought that was very impressive, that despite the constant cry of negativity, that you have now these things that are happening. You have in Nevis a manufacturing sector. We're making windows, we're making shutters, we're making doors, we're doing gutters, we're making rum, we're making beer, we're making galvanized roofing, we're doing fencing, we're making furniture, moldings. During COVID, we're even making masks. All of that is happening in Nevis. Agro-processing. And yet you have people who continue to say, no, in infrastructure, the roads, the CCTV, electricity, water, all of this is happening. And happening at a time when people tell you what you're seeing isn't real. And these are some of the thoughts and some of the reasons why I keep coming here. Because I keep saying we need to continue to engage in an honest conversation with our people. We need to continue to say to our people, these are the things that are actually happening. These are the steps that the island is actually taking. This is the development that you can see on the ground. Someone commented to me that when the thousands descended on Nevis for Culturama 50, that they marveled at the fact that these people were seeing Nevis for themselves. Well, you can't go tell them that Pinnis Park doesn't exist, MGR Park, because they now can see it for themselves. Let's go to the phones and take some calls. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
I would like to speak to you off here, please. This is Mrs. Storr from Hickman.
Well, I'm on here until 10, so I can't help you until then. But you can certainly call me once I am done with the show. The number to call for me would be 662-6003.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking your calls again. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. I am reaching out. My voice isn't 100%, so if you have something to say and you want to call in and say it, I encourage you to do so. But I will soldier on and wait for the phones to ring. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at the reality of what is happening on the ground. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, how are you doing?
Well, I have a bit of a cough, but other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, man, I'm here listening and I noticed that you're under the weather. But, of course, being the trooper that you are, you're batting it out. Certainly, listening to you, you know, people can get a good understanding of all of the things that are happening in Nevis, and we have quite a lot of things happening. I myself was very amazed when I looked at the list of restaurants in Nevis. I never really thought about it, that there are so many different businesses in Nevis. Every week we have new businesses opening and so on. And it has to be that something good is happening for people to have that trust in the economy to want to go out and start businesses and so on. And so with so much of that negative talk coming from the other side, you know, if people want to, you really take a look at what's going on, you realize that it's just talk, I guess, because, you know, they are not in the position that they want to be. They have to find something negative to say. But Mark, I want to talk a little bit about, just to switch gears just a little bit, I wanted to invite everybody out to the semi-final, the final four of the I think it's Nevis Anguilla National Bank Primary School football tournament here on Nevis. And of course, over the past few weeks, we've had a really, really big tournament. I want to say kudos to the good folks at the Department of Sport and at the Department of Education, and to all of our coaches in the schools, to the teachers in the schools, those who have been working with our young footballers. Of course, we want to thank the parents for partnering with us, and of course the young students, the footballers who have been the stars. You know, I really want to commend all of them for coming out. Of course, this year we have modified the tournament a bit. I mean, every year we try to improve the tournament, but I think what we have done this year, and I want to single out Mr. Jamia Claxton, who is, of course, the Director of Sport, and, of course, now the Deputy Director, Alger Newton. And I want to also mention Nicola Fraser, who works at the Department of Education, and she heads up our sports there at the Department of Education. I want to really call those out for some mention, you know, because these are all young people and they have put their heads together and come up with a tournament that now we see almost the whole populace of Nevis coming out on match days. So what they have done this year is that they've created what they call match days, where all 10 teams in the tournament get an opportunity to play. And it's been just a revelation. They play on Tuesday afternoons, Friday afternoons, and Sunday afternoons. And the support from the general public has been overwhelming. I myself, I've been to quite a few of the match days, and I'm always amazed to see the numbers of supporters. It's almost like an inter-primary type atmosphere every match day at the park, because we have all of the schools in Nevis participating every day. And when the first set of matches are finished, the fans and the students from those schools, they stick around and they watch the other game. And so we have everybody there. So making it to the final four, we have the Ivor Walters primary, we have the St. Thomas's primary, we have the Charlestown Primary, and the Joycelyn Liebert Primary. And these are 4 of our bigger primary schools on Nevis, and 4 primary schools with a long track record of excellence in sport and in football. And so we are looking forward to a really, really good semi-final match day. And our semi-final match day is going to be on October 29th. That's next week, Tuesday, Mark. And at 5 p.m., we have the Ivor Walters Primary School, and I know you're happy to hear that. I think they finished top of the table, and they will be coming up against the St. Thomas's Primary School. And their game will be at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And then at 6 p.m., we will have the Charlestown Primary School, and they will come up against the Joycelyn Liebert Primary School at 6 p.m. All of these matches are next week, Tuesday afternoon, and then we will determine which teams will play in the 3rd place game and the 1st place game. And these games will be held on the following Saturday evening. And so we're really looking forward to seeing the public come out in the same way and even more than we have seen come out to these games. Certainly, I feel really, really good about what has been happening around football, and I want to thank the National Bank because they came on in a really, really big way. And of course, I want to thank the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association. They have been our partners, and they, of course, have been working through the Nevis Football Association, to really support what we are trying to do in Nevis in terms of growing football here on Nevis. Long we've heard in the Federation that Nevis doesn't play a lot of football. I think, we can put that to bed, and in another few years, we would see some really, really good footballers coming through here in Nevis based on what I see happening in this tournament, Mark.
Much for that and for the update. In fact, that was the topic I was about to go on to while I was hoping the phones would ring. So I don't need to address it because you've addressed it fully. Yes. But I was at the barber shop today and the issue came up. And I should tell you that at least one person who was there felt that Ivor Walters, having topped the what you call it, the preliminary rounds.
Yeah.
That Ivor Walters should have somehow got some privileges going into the finals, and perhaps maybe of the top 4 of the final 4. I'm sorry, the team that finished top should have played the team that finished bottom of that final 4, and that would have been somehow a reward, if you will, for the team that finished at the top.
Oddly enough, Mark, I've been to most of the games.
Yes.
And I believe that these top 4 teams they're not so far apart.
Yes.
I don't think 4th place is far away from 1st place. I think these teams are all, pretty evenly matched, and I'm looking forward to this final 4. They would have played each other a few times, and I'm really looking forward to a competitive set of semi-final games.
So could you tell us again, the semi-finals then will be on October 29th?
October 29th.
And Ivor Walters comes up against?
Ivor Walters comes up against St. Thomas's Primary, and that's the 5 o'clock game. And then the 6 o'clock game will be Charlestown Primary versus Joycelyn Liebert Primary. And what we basically did was to have a random pick, and that was done at the National Bank branch office in Charlestown this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
The pictures are all over Facebook, so it was a random pick. That's the way it was set up from the beginning. That's what everybody agreed to, and I think that the final 4, there are going to be some interesting games. I think any one of those teams could come out on top.
So I have one last question to ask you. Is there any truth to the allegation that one young player scored 11 goals in a game?
I don't think it's an allegation. I came to the park late,
Uh-huh.
and I missed it, and he's my young cousin. you know, he has been an excellent football player all throughout the tournament. You know, he's somebody who goes out and gets it. So I would imagine, you know, that is true. I heard about it and I was, you know, I was floored when I heard about it.
Wow.
You know, very, very amazing feat to go out and get 11 goals.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Honorable Troy Liebert. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate the call and really appreciate the update. And I share your enthusiasm because I have not been to the park yet, but I have seen the number of photos and I've heard the reports, and it appears that this has been quite a successful inter-primary football league. And the fact that you're comparing it to the inter-primary athletics meet says a lot, speaks for itself.
And that's what we are looking to do, you know. We are looking to bring the general public out to support the youngsters. You know, it's all about the youngsters, it's all about our youth, it's all about the future of Nevis. Us coming together to support the youngsters and to invest in the future of Nevis.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, you have a good night, man.
Yes, thank you. And kudos to you and to the entire team, Jamir and all of those there at the Department of Youth, Alge, you know, Nicola, the entire team, really, who continue to do great things.
And some good work being put in by, of course, the PS and the PEO and all of the other support.
And all the coaches as well.
It's definitely a team effort from top to bottom at education and sports.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, I think gives us a very real sense. And as I said, that was the topic that I had next to address. But the Honorable Troy Liebert called in and he addressed it perfectly for me. He is really the man who is best suited to address it, because it is he and his team who are putting on a football extravaganza at the ETW Park. And so we encourage, of course, our people to go out. And 4 teams in the final 4. And 2 of them I could say are my teams, because I started my school life at what is now the Joycean Liebert Primary School, and I also went to the Ivor Walters Primary School. So those 2 teams, but of course we know St. Thomas's and Charlestown are hard to beat. So I share the view that it should be a very interesting final 4. Let's go back to the phones and say good evening. Caller, please call back in if you can. Let's try this call. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, you're talking about sports. Yeah, I have a concern. I mean, I have seen and heard these young boys and they feel they have hard times every afternoon playing football. And if I could recall, I've seen when it was taking place, the installing of, well, I don't know if I should say light, because there is none. The erecting of the poles and those receptacles over there, and they even the hard court for some years now, and there is no light. I would like to know what's really going on, because I don't think that the young boys and those guys who are playing sports, those young guys, are being treated fairly. So for over 5 years now, since those things did, and there is no light, I would like to know what's really going on. Why being that way?
Yeah, so caller, you're right that we've had some bad delays in relation to that project, which was to light all of the fields in Nevis, including those at hard times, but also those all around the island. The difficulty that I'm advised in the hard times area has to do with the power. The last report that we got on this matter, it was a situation with Nevlec and some transformers that were necessary in that area in order to allow the lights to work effectively, and that is a problem that we've been experiencing with Nevlec in terms of being able to get these transformers. I did not even know that apparently there's a scarcity of transformers globally, and that transformers now there's a tremendous backlog in relation to getting them. So that was what I was told, that apparently is the major issue. It's a pity that the Honorable Troy Liebert is off the line, because he was the one who gave the update as the Minister of Sport. That project would have started, you're right, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that we started to do a project to light all of the playing fields on Nevis. And that project had to be stopped because we didn't have what we needed to complete it. But I will give you the commitment tonight that it is something that we're working on and that we hope to have completed. I have not been deaf to the cries of the young sportsmen and sportswomen, especially up in the Rollins area, who have been agitating for quite some time. And I believe you know Wise, and Wise has been agitating for quite some time to get the lights on the field. They had hard times set up properly, because you know they play some good cricket over there as well, softball cricket, and have some good tournaments there. So it is something that we are aware of, caller, but as I said, we've had some technical issues and the supply of the materials that are required. That was the reason that I was given as to why that entire project was delayed. But I assure you that we will get back on it and we will resolve those issues and get those fields lit, so that, as you point out, our young people can enjoy the benefit of sport and sport in the evening. With the heat now, you can't even ask people to play sport during the daytime anymore, because frankly the heat is almost unbearable. So playing in the evenings, I think, is a better option, and to do that we need lights.
Yes, Mr. Brantley, it's an urgent matter.
I hear you, I understand, I share your concern, and as I said, I can only share with you what was shared with me, because I did ask the question and we had a recent discussion as to how we can move that project forward. So I share your view. I'm not going to try to deflect in any way. It is a responsibility that we have to meet. I'm merely sharing with you what the reason I was given for the delays.
Well, I'm looking forward to see lights over there and the young boys and playing around. I'm looking forward to that, and you move on the court.
Yes, well, I think
they pass by the court out there and light over there, and man, you have a big crowd out there, which is not tennis, it's netball or basketball. I mean, it's not good enough.
Right, I get you, and as I said, that is the intention. We just need to get it done. So you have my commitment on that, caller, that we will get it done. And the Honorable Minister just called in. I know he's listening, and I have impressed upon him and the team the urgency to get it done, and I know that we will. So you can take that to the bank. Okay?
Okay.
All right. It's 25 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock. We're taking your calls. 869-469-1616. 869-469-1700. Those are numbers to call if you want to be a part of the show tonight. And of course, I continue to invite individuals to call in and share their views. Let's go back to the phones and take this call. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Yes, Honorable Brantley. Good night.
Good night to you.
Yeah, I'm going to read my scripture, but I have a question to ask you first.
Sure.
What about the hammer that our forefathers used to make? That's not coming on the market yet.
When you say coming on the market,
it's not come on the market yet.
Some may argue they're too much on the market.
Okay, you answer the question.
All right.
All right. My scripture is taken from Psalm 133, and I'm reading the 3 verses. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garment, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. Good night, and God bless.
Thank you so much for that beautiful scripture. Thank you. How good and how pleasant it is for brethren to live together in unity. I'm truly appreciative of that, and I think that ties into the theme of just trying to work together for the benefit of the country. So thank you very much, my friend, for that scripture. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking your calls. 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Let me give a quick update on a few matters. The general public... Okay, let me go back to the phones then. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I want to really endorse the statement for very caution, because I still think if the system is causing a lot of these things between the two parties, we should be working together. But I could see through everything that you say, and I hope we get over this soon properly, you know. And the second thing, the psychologist lad from Trinidad there, he made a statement about the family. I want to condemn the statement because since 1624, when the slavery established in St. Kitts, the black family has never been given a chance to establish itself. The European definition of a family is never what a black family is. A black family is more than just two people in a house with the children. And the black family has never recovered to be what it was, an effective institution amongst us. The third thing I want to do is the teachers, and want to sort of all the teachers and teachers month, especially the teachers that even teach black history with no recognition at all, you know. Continue to do the work, because Marcus Garvey said people without the knowledge of their own history and culture is like a tree without root. And the sixth thing I want the chief of police, I never see anybody wash clean clothes with dirty water. So then he really got to clean up the force before he starts talking about the pointing the finger, because it is not justice to sweep all those crimes that the police do and punish people. I really that in the St. Kitts, nobody want, and the Navy, nobody want to hold the police accountable. But the democracy of police is not above the law. Police must be held accountable. And they've done so much wrong because the foreign interest is we use the police to do a lot of wrong in St. Kitts. I would keep saying that. And we need an inquiry. Too much of things going on with fish around people more than things, and the question needs to be asked. And if justice is to be served, it must be served. What about the case of Nigel Langley, which according to my information, the police report is not being released because the inspector Benjamin was killed by a police bullet. How could you prove that Nigel Langley killed a police with a police bullet? These are things that need to be God Wilkins that need to touch. Or Yusuf Benjamin shot, or no he police no, but these things that can't be swept on the drum, Mr. God Wilkins. There is justice going on, justice delayed is justice denied. And we're calling for more inquiry into these unsolved murders in St. Kitts. Too much of them let dry. And I want from this distance to raise my voice and say it's time again, justice delayed is justice denied. Give thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and thank you for your call. You've been fairly consistent over the past several months as a caller to the show in raising your issues, and we have not always agreed, of course, but we respect your right to raise the issues that are of concern to you, and I thank you for your contribution to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, for those just tuning in, you're listening to On The Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and we're inviting your calls at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. We've been discussing various things this evening in terms of what's happening on the island of Nevis, what's happening in the region. I sent out a call to anybody in the BVI who can call in and tell us a bit about what's happening there in the BVI with the Premier firing the Deputy Premier today. That seems to be a story of some intrigue in the region. We'd like to hear a bit about that. And certainly, of course, we know that the United States is lurching towards an election, and so we look forward to see what will happen there. In the meantime, there's a lot happening right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we continue to take your calls and to have a discussion about that. Now, I was about to give an update when the phone rang. I still invite you to call. I'll interrupt my updates to take your calls. But on the airport project, my understanding is that that project is moving along. We did have some delays in relation to the land and discussion with landowners. I believe that we're at a point now where we are in a position to project a start of that particular project. and I'm delighted that we've made some progress. I'm told the EIA has been deposited with planning authorities, the design concepts and all that has been deposited with planning, and I am optimistic based on the last report from the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who has been leading on that project for the Nevis Island administration. His last report to the cabinet did suggest that we had some forward momentum in relation to that particular project, and so we look forward to seeing that project resume. In relation to the hospital project, I'm hopeful that I will have some concrete information for the public very soon as well. Of course, when I speak of the hospital project, I'm speaking about the expansion of that project, of the existing hospital. But I just want to again reiterate the position that I have stated time and time again, that despite delays encountered in completing the construction of the new wing of the hospital, the old wing is operating just fine. In fact, we've added considerable specialties, we've added considerable equipment, we've added a much better environment there, air conditioning and all of that at the Alexandra Hospital, and it is our view that the service levels at the Alexandra Hospital are the best that they've ever been. And so whilst we acknowledge the delays in relation to the construction of the new wing, I don't want us for a moment to feel that healthcare on the island of Nevis has not moved forward, because it has moved forward in leaps and bounds. You now have CT scan state-of-the-art offered right here in Nevis. You now have MRI, not MRI, I'm sorry, what am I saying? CT scan and mammogram, that's what I'm looking for, offered right here on the island of Nevis as well. We have modernized, we have increased our technology, and we are offering more specialties, more doctors available to our people, doctors and the clinics. We have done some interesting things in having services such as specialist services, gynecological services, OBGYN services available on the districts, trying to, if you will, take care out into the communities. We have done quite a bit of work, and I do not want that work to be diminished in any way, shape or form, because I think we ought to be proud of what we've achieved thus far in terms of healthcare. I want to acknowledge and celebrate the Honorable General Nisbet. She's a young minister, again an example of our investment in our young people. She has come on board and she has done an excellent job with a very difficult and large ministry, but a very important ministry, the Ministry of Health. And so we continue to encourage her and her entire team, her permanent secretary and assistant secretaries, and the entire team that continues to deliver day in, day out for the people of Nevis. And so we continue to celebrate our accomplishments, acknowledge where we have work to do, but certainly Rome was not built in a day, and Nevis will not be built in a day either. But the progress is undeniable. Today I had lunch with the Honorable Samuel Duggins, who came over, and some colleagues of his, for a brief meeting, and we decided to meet over lunch, and we met over lunch at one of the restaurants at Pinny's, and everyone was commenting and marveling at what an excellent product we have created at Pinny's. And these are some of the things that I continue to say, because these things are undeniable. You cannot tell somebody that a road is unpaved when they go on the road themselves and they realize that the road is paved. So the obvious nonsense that is being spewed and continues to be spewed is unfortunate. The projects are there, the results are there, and it is for our people to look at them and to recognize what they are, and to make a determination as to whether or not they're satisfied with what they are. But the projects are there. It is clear what has been done and the extent to which this island has developed. I don't think that there could be any doubt about such matters. We will shortly be having an opening of the park, the entire park, the completed second and final phase of the park at Pinny's. Even though it's in use, we have not officially opened it, so we hope to do that soon. And we'll be doing the same at the Bath Stream, where we have transformed that particular facility. And we are not stopping the work. We have other work to do, and we'll continue to work, because that's why you elected us, to do the work and to get the work done. And so we certainly look forward to continuing that effort. Ladies and gentlemen, we have maybe about 25 minutes left. I'm inviting your calls. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call to be a part of the show this evening, and to hear some different voices and some different viewpoints. And so you're absolutely encouraged to call in and to share your perspective. Now, going back to Bermuda and my intended trip there, I must say that I was and have been very surprised, pleasantly so, at the extent of excitement that I would have heard from so many who have called, who have reached out on social media or otherwise to say that they're looking forward to the engagement in Bermuda. They're looking forward to welcoming me to Bermuda. And the fact that nigh 40% of Bermudans trace their roots to St. Kitts and Nevis means that there is a natural connectivity between St. Kitts and Nevis and Bermuda. And so I think that it is really an interesting opportunity to engage, and I look forward very much to seeing the good people of Bermuda. Interestingly enough, one of the things that has been happening is that people right here in St. Kitts and Nevis have been calling me and sending me messages to tell me that they have so many family members in Bermuda. I have really been astonished at the level of connectivity that exists, the familial bonds that exist. And for me, it is time now to take that message to those of us who are living in the diaspora in Bermuda, that we are open for business here, we're looking for investment here, and we want them to invest here, to come back here, to rekindle their love affair with their country of their ancestors. They were not born here, but certainly people left here and went to Bermuda 100+ years ago. In fact, I know that some would have left here in 1901, 1904. That's over 120 years ago. But they went there to help build that little island, to the point where that island now boasts one of the highest standards of living in the world. Not just the Caribbean, in the world, where our GDP per capita is hovering around $21,000 or so. Bermuda's is $122,000. 5 times the GDP per capita of St. Kitts and Nevis. 5 times the gross national product of St. Kitts and Nevis. I think our GNP is estimated at about just over $1 billion US. Bermuda, from the numbers I saw, was over $7 billion US. Bermuda is only 21 square miles but has 65,000 people. We at 104 square miles, we only have 51,000. So I think that there's a lot of synergies there that we can explore, and I certainly look forward to exploring it. And while I'm there, I'm told they have their Gombe festival that's happening, so I'll have an opportunity, of course, to attend and to be a part of that. Gombe, of course, comes out of, from what I've seen, our own masquerade here that our people would have taken to Bermuda with them over 100 years ago, and that has been now, how should I say, modified. It has adopted and been adopted and adapted to the point now where Bermuda has something unique to Bermuda, which is their Gombe festival. And so we look forward certainly to them. We saw them on display here for Culturama 50, and we think that that is absolutely excellent. We also have seen that our forebears who went to the Dominican Republic, particularly to a place called San Pedro de Macorís, that they too have a version of our masquerade there. And again, it demonstrates the impact that our people have had as they've traveled and settled in various parts of the world. So we certainly look forward to that trip, and I hope that the engagement there is an excellent engagement. In fact, it looks as if my trip is going to be too short, because a number of people who are reaching out and are saying that they want to meet, they want an opportunity, they're business people who want to meet. I don't think that I'll have enough time, but I assure the good people of Bermuda that whilst this is my first trip, once I have strength, once God is good to me, I will be back. And so we look forward to an engagement or re-engagement between our people who are living here at home and those who are living in the diaspora, including Bermuda, but also, of course, those who are living in the diaspora in other places as well. So we certainly look forward to that, and we will see where that takes us. But I'm looking forward and hoping and anticipating that our people in Bermuda, we're going to end up in a situation where we see more people coming back, more people reconnecting with their roots, coming home, if you will, visiting, building homes here, building retirement communities here, investing here. And that's what we hope to see. Just as we helped to build Bermuda, we want them now, Bermudans, but of St. Kitts Nevis stock, to come back and help us build St. Kitts and Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark. We have 15 minutes left. And again, I'm inviting the calls at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. We'll be delighted to hear from you, to understand what issues you may have, and how, of course, we can discuss those and find solutions. One caller called in and spoke about the absence of lights at the playing fields in Rollins, and as I said, I hope the Honorable Troy Libert was listening. That is a project that has to be completed. It would have started under the Honorable Eric Evelyn, but as I said, we've had some difficulties in terms of upgrading the infrastructure to ensure that the lights that we have what we need to operate and operate effectively. But we are committed, and as I've given that public commitment to this caller, we will indeed get the job done. Okay, so as we have 15 minutes, phones aren't ringing, so we'll have to try and soldier through and continue to just provide updates to the public in terms of what's happening and where we're going and what we anticipate that we will be able to do. We are already now completed with our budget estimates, our meetings where we discuss what our expenditure side is going to look like and what our projects are going to look like in the coming year. I have made it very clear to the cabinet, and the cabinet has thankfully agreed that our main capital project for 2025 will be the Alexandra Hamilton wing at our hospital. That is where we intend to focus our resources in the coming budget season. We also, of course, have been looking at various positions, and so I just want the public to know that what has guided us is that, one, we are not looking to hire additional workers into the government unless it is absolutely essential. We feel that the private sector now in Nevis is growing. The level of investment and private sector investment especially is growing, and that there is now room, ample room, for the private sector to absorb the number of persons coming into the workforce. And so in government, we're trying our very best to keep government as lean as we can keep it, to ensure that there is no wastage, and to ensure that we manage and control our wage bill, because that is a continued focus of those who have come, the IMF and others, to say that our wage bill has really been growing too much. It has been expanding outwards, the government's wage bill. We prefer to see the wages in the private sector. Those are the wages that we want to see grow, and so we certainly hope that we can hold the reins and manage that. And our wage bill has been impacted on two sides. There's pressure. One, that we've been hiring more and more people into government, and two, those people are being hired and being paid higher and higher wages. You remember there was a time when a lot of people said, then I work for government, they prefer to work in the private sector because they make more money. Well, over the years, the government has continued to increase salaries and increase salaries. Even recently, we had a 15% increase in salaries. The result of that has been that a lot of our people now in the government sector are being paid at wages which are very similar to what the private sector is earning. And so that has removed, if you will, the disincentive. And so persons are now, some expressing a preference to be in government. So we're trying our very best to hold the line where that is concerned. We've also observed the ongoing abuse of government vehicles, and I have spoken about it right in this forum. I've spoken about it in press conferences. I've spoken about it in meetings with our civil servants. Some people, it appears, are not prepared to put down the government vehicles, and so they have them as their private vehicle, driving 24/7, going to church, going to the supermarket, doing all that they need to do at taxpayers' expense, because we're the ones putting in the gas, we're the ones who pay for repairs and pay for tires and do all of that. And the irony is that the only individual in government, that is in the cabinet as a minister, who has available to him an official vehicle is me, as a premier. The deputy premier doesn't have one, he drives his own vehicle. None of the other members of cabinet have one, they drive their own vehicle. Not a single prominent secretary has a vehicle 24/7, they drive their own vehicle. And they collect a travel allowance that is the offset. So yet you have now public servants up and down the line who have vehicles, government vehicles, treating them as if they were private vehicles, 24/7 on the road, all hours of day and night. And many of them are still collecting travel allowance on top of that. So these are things that we have to deal with, because these are some of the efforts and the areas, where there is a wastage of resources. I believe Nevis can balance its books. Nevis can in fact show surpluses, but in order for us to do that, we absolutely have to manage the accounts. We have to cut out the wastage, and we have to collect government revenue. And I'll come back to that after this call. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Yes, sir, good night, good night. And time is not in our favor, so let me just ask a couple of issues of concern that I have. To my knowledge, educate me a little bit. Our beaches, any of our beaches in need is blocked off, private, or anything of that sort?
No, all beaches by law are public.
Okay. Well, I have concern about a particular beach. I know it as Mosquito Bay. That's at the foot of Cliff Hill. That is a section of beach between the Sidridge Port and Cliff Hill. Before time, it was, the last year, it was blocked off from vehicular traffic by some large boulders. Now it is blocked off by fence. So no foot traffic, no vehicular traffic has access to the beach. And I've asked questions, different persons of tourism and such like, and everybody say nothing about it. But to the best of my knowledge, that erection, that blockage is still there. I am not racist, I am not prejudiced, but I find it very, very, very offensive. If we would open up our borders, our shores, our hospitality to foreigners, and they will come here and put claim to resources that are not theirs to claim in the first place. It is disrespectful to the very least. Okay? I don't know if you can adjust that for me.
No, well, I share your view, caller, and I confess that I wasn't aware that there was any fence put down there. I do know that at some point, to prevent vehicular traffic, there was some boulders put there, but nobody should be able by law to fence off the access to the beach. So that is something that, now you have raised it, I will look into that tomorrow morning bright and early, because that ought not to be.
I appreciate that, sir. Secondly, the drug issue in our country. Now, this is my view. In 1999, early 90s, around 93, thereabout, the armed government was in power. Collision between PAM and NRP. Around the time, the Democrat newspaper was pushing an article that they were saying that St. Kitts and Nevis, on record, is the freest nation in the world. Exactly what I mean, I'm not too sure, but that was the title that the Federation had then. In about 94 94, 95, thereabout, she, according to certain statistics, she became in the single digit, close to number one of being the murder capital in the world, according to certain statistics. What happened between 1991 and 95 was the introduction of what was called then the gang.
It was called what? Sorry.
The Gang of Six.
Oh,
This was the notorious Charles Miller, Little Nut, Noel Heath, and some others. I don't remember off the top of my head. I remember three of them, and there was a guy named Matthew and some others. Anyway, what happened between when these men came, they introduced an onslaught of weapons, guns on our streets, and drugs, a heavy onslaught of drugs on our streets. So, as a result of their introduction, it was the original, but it was heavily emphasized that they started now that St. Kitts and Nevis right now is in a wash of blood. That blood is on our street because what these men did. Now we have a drug issue, well, we have a murder issue where crime is rampant as far as murder is concerned. And this is my strong view. Doesn't have to be shared or agreed upon. Most of these killings are drug related. They are as a result of our young men have been using the drugs that for whatever ludicrous reason that the world government has made it to say decriminalize the drug use, making it as if it's not a big deal. But yet we have this murderous spree that practically everybody's concerned about their sons. Will my son come home when he leaves? Will he be safe? Will he get involved in these things? And these things has become the norm rather than the exception. So the problem I recognize, in my view, is that the drug use is the problem. We have an abundance, in my view, a rich array of men, and these young men have become such a waste of time and space to go on certain establishments, and these young men in their late teens, in the early 20s, sitting around and just smoking cannabis day and night as long as they have it, and they congregate and they do it. But to the point that our young men now have become what we call the drain population. The drain as in running drain, because they hang around the drain, they populate the drain, and that is what they do. And what I find is interesting, that the people that use this most, seemingly by population, seemingly are of the Negro descent. I cannot recall ever seeing somebody of Oriental descent using it. I cannot recall ever seeing, I've heard of, but I have never seen anybody of Indian descent using it. I cannot recall seeing white and a populace using it. I would imagine they do, but to the extent, and the populace as they do it, and it's so poignant, what it seems like there is a diabolical plan to cause and to influence our young people, or people on a whole, to make bad choices. Because it is my strong view that every single one of them who use it make bad choices. Every last one of them, they make bad choices, not just the use of it, but as a result of the use of it. And so we now have this problem, and we're trying to fix crime problem, but yet we have this allowance in our country and in our state that we think, okay then, alright, so let me smoke a little bit, it's for vacation use, no big deal. It has an effect. And that is why I can introduce what happened to St. Kitts and Nevis and our reputation and our stability, because of the introduction of the heavy use of drugs. And these men, when they introduced it, and from the time they introduced heavy use of drugs and guns in our federation, we have not recovered for over 30 years. In fact, before we recover, we get worse. But instead of we say we decriminalize the drug as if we do somebody a favor. I do not care what anybody saying. This is a plan to destroy our people. And the stupid thing is that we, our young men, are so foolish enough to fall for it, think it's a good thing, that they have rights to do it, not knowing that this thing is destroying them. And it is aggravating to my soul that these things are happening right in our faces. Right in our faces. And it's like a sense of helplessness. Or we want the killing to stop. The killing is not going to go when the drugs is there. If they figure that out, you're going to figure out nothing. So I'm going to have drugs use in our country, and we will always have bloodshed in our streets. I guarantee that. They go hand in hand. And it takes a blind rat not to notice that. No disrespect to anyone, but that is the reality of the situation, sir. We need this thing. This thing. This is a big mess that we have created and allowed in our federation and our people. Our people and our young men, our young people are set up for destruction. And we need not turn a blind eye and pretend that it's an okay situation when they only sit home and smoke a little weed and smoke nothing wrong with the lead weed, can weed, got medical benefits. Who cares? How many sick people we got so? How many sick people we got so?
Can I ask you a question, caller? I hear your view. I hear your view, and you're clearly quite passionate about it, and the show is coming to an end. But before we end the show, I wanted to ask you, if you were to continue the criminalization of marijuana, I'm now dealing specifically with marijuana, would that, you think, restrict the widespread usage of it, or merely force it on the ground?
It is going to be more difficult to stop now because the floodgate has been opened.
But let me just tell you quickly that I grew up in a place in Nevis called Brown Hill, and I recall I moved to Brown Hill about 46 years or so ago, and I remember at that time many people used marijuana 46 years ago, but we didn't have any murders, we didn't have any killings, we didn't have any of that. It wasn't happening. So all I'm saying is that I'm not disputing your thesis, but whether or not marijuana itself or marijuana use itself that has been with us for decades, whether or not one can say there's a direct correlation between that and the spate of violence that we're seeing in our streets.
Remember, this time is not in our favor. So I can't even really respond to that as I would really like to, but it doesn't make sense for us to play ostrich. Very heady, understand? No disrespect to you or anybody else, for sure. But it is a problem we have, and it must be recognized. Correlated. That's why I mentioned the situation what happened in Sinkit about these gang of six and the drug use and everything else. But anyway, time is not in our favor, sir. So I really thank you so much for your indulgence.
Yeah, well, thank you, and we're here every Wednesday, so if there's an opportunity for you to re-engage, because I think you've raised a very important topic, and one that certainly I would have liked to explore with you on the air a bit more, but our 2 hours is up, the band is struck up, we have to go. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. We had a very passionate call as our final call, and a fitting way to end the show this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all who called. Thank you for those who tuned in, those who participated. Truly appreciate it, and certainly we pray that we will have the health and strength to be back here with you next Wednesday for another edition of On The Mark. This show is rebroadcast right here on Von Radio tomorrow at 1 p.m. And so if you heard it tonight, that's okay. Sometimes it's so nice you listen twice. Thank you. Good night, and God bless you. In Bermuda, see you soon. God bless you.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.